Welcome to Leadership Matters, a podcast from the Bailey Group. I'm your host, Kaylee Thomsen, president of and partner at the Bailey Group, where we believe better leaders create healthier workplace environments, healthier humans, and a better world. On this show, we explore real stories, practical insights, and honest conversations to help you lead yourself and others better. Thanks for joining us. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Leadership Matters. I'm your host, Kaylee Thomsen, and today I'm thrilled to welcome Marisa C. Williams to the podcast. Marisa has spent more than 2 decades leading organizations, developing leaders, and investing in communities. Today, she serves as CEO of Girl Scouts River Valleys, but what drew me to her wasn't her resume, it was her philosophy. Marisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kaylee.
One thing you shared before we started recording really stayed with me, and you said you're much more interested in what lights people up than their titles or their accomplishments. So I would love to hear from you. What lights you up, Marisa?
Well, thank you for allowing us to start with that question. I feel like it's just going to set us up for a really great conversation today. When I think about what lights me up, it's really about possibility. I have been a disruptor for as long as I possibly can remember. And even before that, I'm sure my mom has stories. And so when I think about the possibility of change, of transformation, of people truly operating in their genius zone consistently, that's what gives me hope for the future, right? I heard this earlier this year around this concept of hope and how you have to own it. And I took on in February really putting on that hat of I have to be the architecture of hope, not only in my household, but also in the places that I move and shake. Because if I'm not bringing that with me, chances are it might not be in the space. And so it is my responsibility to make sure that I am doing everything possible to make sure that my cup is full and overflowing so that I can pass that along to other people.
What does that look like, Marisa?
So it starts very early in the morning. I have turned myself into a morning person.
I love it.
Yeah, because that was not the case early on in life. But, I believe in this concept of watch your mouth ministry, and what you put out there, you will manifest. And so my husband and I wake up at 5:30 every day. We do our devotions, we do our workout in the gym, and then we can start our day and pouring into our son and our jobs and all of the people that we exist to serve, right? But we can't do that well if we don't start first by taking care of mind, body, spirit, and ensuring that we are starting baseline our day, really keeping what is core to us and to our heart posture in mind. And so that's how we start every day.
I love that. And when did you start that practice, Marisa?
You know what? My husband is a nutrition coach and personal trainer as a hobby. He started this probably about 8 years ago.
Wow.
And he will tell you even today, he works out with me. I do not work out with him because it's a very different dynamic. But I would say our practice of waking up in the morning and working out together, I think it was really codified and solidified when we moved here to Minnesota about 3.5 years ago. But this has been a practice, especially in partnership with devotion, because when you step out on faith to do a thing, you immediately realize that you are not doing this within your own power. And so if you're not making sure that you're connected to the source on a regular basis, you know that your abilities will not get you where you need to be. And so when we decided to move to Minnesota, it was a complete step out on faith because we knew no one in Minnesota. And I said, Girl Scouts, Minnesota, what? God, what are we doing? And so making sure that we are always connected and understand what is our assignment? Who are we supposed to help today? God, send us our helpers. And just making sure that we are fortified on a regular basis allows us to move and shake in the way that we do. And it's been a beautiful journey to be a part of, but also really watching each other grow in a different space, and also watching my husband grow in leadership. When he came here, he was an individual contributor, and now he manages 4 states of clinical specialists for a company that focuses on heart defibrillators. And it's
Wow.
just like, it's wild to see his journey shift from where he was when we came from Pittsburgh to now what he's doing, but he's prepared for this, which has been awesome. And we can have conversations while we're both on the treadmill about the different challenges that we have, but it's always from a human perspective, which I love that we kind of match each other in that way in our leadership space.
Yeah, I love that. You know, I know you've mentioned before that no one could have convinced you to move to Minnesota when you were in your 20s. Take us back to the season when that first became a possibility and the things that prepared you for this move and this chapter that you're in now, Marisa.
When the recruiter said Minnesota, I immediately thought, like, Bobby's World? Like, what snow close to Canada? Like, what do I know about Minnesota to make an informed decision? I knew nothing. And so when I think about the job of being the CEO for Girl Scouts, that wasn't in the lineup for me. I don't even think that would compute in my brain, like, hey, one day when I grow up, I want to do that job. But when I think about how I have journeyed through this life, I was always the little girl who got talks too much on her report card, always called bossy. And now my entire job is to encourage little girls and young women to take up space and never shrink and stand tall and amplify their voices and other friends' voices. And I'm like, well, where's my first grade teacher? Because I got to tell her, hey, I am doing okay. And being bossy served me well, right? And so, in thinking about how do you prepare for these moments, I have been blessed in that I have not applied for a job in well over 10 years. Every time an opportunity was presented, it was as if God was saying, okay, we went through this test and it was for this purpose. And I'm like, wait, but I just got comfortable here. Why are we going anywhere else? I wasn't ready to go, right? In the middle of the height of COVID, he took me from the YMCA to running an affordable housing nonprofit. In the height of COVID, I said, what did I do that suggested that I was ready to do this? And then once I was at that organization and amplified the brand of that organization, people knew about the organization well beyond the zip codes that it served. Then God was like, okay, and now we're going to move on to something else. And I truly believe, and I've shared this with my husband, that while I am the beneficiary of this Girl Scouting opportunity, and I love what I get to do with these young people every day, I truly believe that I was used as the carrot. Because, dangle young girls that need all of this affirmation and opportunities to explore and world of work tours. I'm going to take this cookies, camps, and crafts and turn it on its head. Say, okay, this is about leadership, workforce, and let's reimagine this. But really thinking about, really about moving the whole family, right? And I have a 10-year-old son. And at the time we moved, he was 7. And so it's like, how does this work? Because leadership isn't a title. Leadership is how you move and shake in the world, right? And so being able to make sure that my son has his own agency, that my husband feels supported in his leadership journey, it is a family process and dynamic. And when you think about how humans feel and how they process, moving half across the country is a big deal. And I don't necessarily think I was prepared, but I was connected to the one that I rely on to ensure that we would be ready and we would be good. And now my husband and son both say this was the best move of our life. So it worked out.
I'd love to hear more about where that best move of your lives comes from, Marisa.
I think in part it's the process of becoming who you are meant to be, right? I shared with you early on, I've always been a disruptor and an intentional disruptor. If I see something that's not right, I'm going to speak on it. If I see something that needs to be done better, we're going to figure out how to do that. I always tell folks I'm a recovering banker, loving nonprofit, but I did spend 10 years in corporate. And I remember early on in my banking career, I'd won some award. I can't remember what it was. There was this big award ceremony that was happening on a Monday. On Sunday, I threw a pool party at my house, not thinking anything could go wrong. I mean, what could go wrong? It's summer. Let's enjoy life. We're in our 20s. Then friend, who is now my husband, and his fraternity brother decided to throw me in the pool. Now, all these curls that I have today and loving my curls, in my 20s, it was straight and I always wore it that way. And I was so mad at them. I was like, you guys threw me in the pool. I have this awards thing to go to tomorrow. I'm not going to have time. And I had a friend, Will Johnson. He said, Marissa, if you straighten your hair tomorrow, I'm going to be very disappointed in you. And I said, Will, why? He said, because your curls are beautiful. What is the problem? And I said, I don't wear my hair curly to work. And in that moment, I had to wrestle with me because I was saying that the way that my hair grows out of my head is not comfortable for me to show up in a moment where I'm going to be honored and center stage. And I had to think about that. Because what does that say about my view of me in that moment? Now, this is way before it was, the Crown Act and, okay, let's talk about, the way that your hair grows out of your head. This was not that space and time. And so I wore my hair curly to work that next day with all the looks and the side eyes and the attempts to touch my hair. And in that moment, it was intrinsic validation for me that one, I was worth no less on that day for wearing my hair curly. My skills and talents did not automatically diminish because I decided to wear my hair with curls in it. And I felt this ridiculous surge of confidence when I concluded the day, like, wait, I was worried about a thing that was really a non-issue. And from that point on, I wore my hair the way that I wanted to when I got to work.
Wow.
And that was a defining moment for me around being your unapologetic, authentic self, but it had to be birthed out of some form of adversity. And so when I think about adversity truly is the cost for advancement, because I wouldn't get to this space if I hadn't gone through that and made the right choice.
Yeah.
Because what would have happened if I straightened my hair, right? I wouldn't have gotten that level of confidence and that experience that I had because I wanted to assimilate. Nope.
I love that comment. Looking at adversity as really the cost of development and growth. But it does require courage and resilience and experimentation, which is not always comfortable in the moment.
When all of the things are good and you're getting the promotions and the accolades and everything is amazing, that's not where growth happens. Those are the celebration mountain moments. But what happens when you're in the valley, right? And I'll be honest with you, I've had a lot of valley moments where I have had to wrestle with, do I allow the opinions of people who are in power to shift the way that I think about who I am? Or do I own exactly who I am, knowing that they have a position of power, but not releasing my peace to those folks? And I have learned so much more being in the valley and coming out of it than those mountaintop moments. They're great, but seasons change, and you always have to be ready when the season changes.
So well said. One of the things I really admire is that your leadership philosophy is lived. You became a leader at just 21 years old, and someone looked at you and believed you were ready, Marissa. As you think back on that, what do you think they saw in you that you didn't fully see in yourself yet?
Never forget the moment that I applied to be a bank teller my senior year of college. And I went and I met with the branch manager. And keep in mind, when you're in college and you're a senior, you don't schedule classes before 2 p.m. You're like, what? We've learned. We don't do this. So I go to the interview. The first thing he says to me is, I can't offer you this job. I'm thinking, you could have called me. I got on the bus. I'm suited and booted. What is this? Right? And he said, you'll learn about retention and attrition one day, but you were so overqualified for this job. And I said, with all due respect, I don't have a degree. I'm not overqualified to do anything. And he saw something in me and said, you know what? I'm going to refer your resume to the retail management training program at the organization. It happens in Chicago. It's a much bigger opportunity for you. 2 weeks later, I got a phone call, interviewed with all of the regional managers, got the job, was the only person in my cohort to negotiate my salary, and I started my career in banking, right? And it was just like, what? This is insane. And I will never forget my first branch manager job. I was probably only a few months older than most of the people that were working in that branch. And then I had a few folks that were old enough to be my grandparents. And so I was in this space of, well, what does leadership look like when you're not the most seasoned person in the room, right? And it looks like listening. It looks like taking in, right? Because at 21, what was I really qualified to do? Like, let's keep it real. Not a whole lot, right? Grace has definitely carried me through. But what I learned in that season was it's not about how much you know, but it's how you treat the people that are in your care, right? And I still have a great relationship with one of the tellers that I first managed, right? That's over 20 years ago. And she was just, I mean, she was a teenager and she was so sweet. She was like, but you were always the best boss. Like, and she always called me boss. And she just said, boss, like you show up the same way in this office as you do in your branch manager meetings with the other folks that are in charge of stuff. She's like, you're not different. And I said, am I supposed to be? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, did I miss a memo? She's like, no, but like you don't see that. Like that's not normal. Most people put on for the people they're supposed to be like or around. I was just like, I'm not built like that. What you see is what you get. I'm a work in progress, but that's what it is.
You said before that there has to be something about a leader that's unmovable. What is that thing for you, Marisa?
That thing for me is truly my faith. I've taken Strength Finder several times, and I will tell you that in the most recent, probably 10 years, belief has been the number one strength that I've had. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that changes and comes after it, but belief is the strongest one. And I think it's because I've had to get really clear that this assignment on is not about me. It's about the girls that I will hopefully impact and the lives that they will lead because I was blessed to have a piece of it. But if I don't come to the opportunity, one with some semblance of humility, like I didn't get here on my own and I can't do this by myself, then I won't be able to operate in my genius zone, right? And I've also learned that leadership is not for folks that have thin skin. You have to be able to take criticism. And it's not always coming to you constructively. And I think motherhood also teaches you got to have thick skin too, right? I mean, parenthood, the best hood. But everybody has opinions and you're not going to make everybody happy. And you have to make really hard choices. And, you know, for those that are a part of the cult, formerly known as Peloton, right? Like, we can do hard things. And we tell each other that all the time. And so it translates into not just your exercise and wellness journey, but it translates into what you do every day. But you can only do hard things if, one, your heart posture is in the right space and you're focused not just on the outcome, you're focused on the intention and the impact, right? Because you can have the absolute best outcomes when you make a decision, but if the intention is off, it might not come out quite right. And if the delivery is not what it needs to be, and you're not considering people, then it's going to be really hard. And I've been in spaces multiple times in my leadership journey where we've had to do reductions in force, we've had to do layoffs. And my first time being a part of that, I was so disrupted in my nervous system because I'm like, people are going to lose their jobs, their way to feed their families. And it was so hard for me to rationalize that process without trying to figure out, how do I help these people find opportunities before this information has to come out? And I don't apologize for it. I made sure that all of my full-time team, they figured out how to get new opportunities before that news had to drop, because I care about people. And at the end of the day, it's not always about doing the right thing. It's about doing what's right. And I have lived my life attempting to be on the side of doing what's right. It doesn't always feel good, but that's the goal.
I really appreciate the comments around impact and doing what's right and seeing the humans behind the work, behind the title, and understanding their lives and their lived experiences and the impact on them. I'm curious, as your leadership style has evolved and been enhanced over the years, what were some of those early mistakes or pitfalls that you fell into?
As you get wiser, I can't even say older, but as you get wiser, you learn that the experiences that you have with people are always going to be a lesson for you. Whether you win in the situation or not, it's a lesson, right? And I've had a lot of teachers show me what good leadership looks like and what not so good leadership looks like. And over the years, I have learned that the first thing that comes to my brain is not the thing that needs to come out of my mouth, right? Like, everything I think doesn't deserve airspace, right? And so earlier in my career, it's like, you think it and it gets said, and you're like, no, you apologize often. I don't want to have to apologize often. I want to be in a space where I am not consistently thinking about reacting, but I'm responding with intention, right? And so I joke and say that, I've become a little bit of a Minnesotan, in that when you say things to me, I might not respond immediately. I will respond, but I might not respond immediately, because I'm thinking about not only what is going to come out of my mouth and how that person is going to receive it, but also, what is my face saying? Because my face speaks before my mouth. I can work on training this. I don't know. It might be a lost cause. I'm working on it though. And so as I have had more experiences in feedback that maybe was not as constructive as it probably should have been in coming in my direction, or people assuming that, well, when you're a leader, people just give you respect. No, that doesn't always happen, right? Sometimes you believe, and maybe some folks believe, the title should come with a different level of respect. But at the end of the day, we're all human. And I believe everybody deserves love. Access, though, is earned, right? And so I don't have to provide access to people who are committed to misunderstanding me. I don't, right? But I have to, because of who I believe in. I have to provide love to everybody. So I am going to seek to understand what is coming to me, so that what I put back out is something that I can put my head on the pillow at night and say, I did a good job today, right? And it doesn't always work. Nobody's perfect, right? But the goal, I start out my day focused on, how can I ensure that people leave me feeling better than when they came to me? Because I've had experiences where I've walked into folks' office and I'm like, man, I felt better before I walked in here. Like, this isn't great. Like, you tore me all the way down. And so the goal is not about tearing people down in a process. They might get it completely wrong. How do you figure out how to help them ensure that the next time they get an opportunity to present a thing or to share their project, that they do it with a sense of confidence and they're not doing it out of fear? Because people that do things with a sense of, you know what, this person really believes in me and I want to do this great for them, those are people that are willing to run through a wall for you, because you make them feel like what they bring to the table is critically important and it's valuable. The folks that you tear apart, they're like, well, what's the point anyway? Because, they're just not going to like what I provide. And I'm always going to be looking for, okay, when's the shoe going to drop? Because the feedback's always negative. Yeah.
Your comment about learning to respond instead of react really resonates. I know many of us are working on that, whether it's in the world of work or with small children or with certain family members. What opportunity really enhanced your awareness for that growth edge for you originally, Marissa?
So I had a situation at work where a leader and I were not seeing eye to eye on how to come to an agreement around how to move forward with regard to a budgeting item.
Mm.
This leader presented an option to potentially eliminate several departments in the organization. And I said, uh-uh, nope, can't do that. One of our strategic priorities is centering equity in everything we do. And two, that is going to eliminate a lot of the diversity that we have across our organization. And we need that because representation is huge for the population that we serve. And so instead of reacting, right, I had a choice to respond and educate why I was saying, nope, that's not a choice that we can make moving forward. That's not a scenario that I can entertain because I know that the Marissa in her 20s probably would have said all of the unhinged things that she was thinking about this decision. And things that were absolutely factual. But again, everything that comes here does not need to come out of here. And so I was so proud of myself in that moment because I saw it as an opportunity to exercise one, grace, and two, restraint. Because we can't take for granted, even if we don't identify with them first. Like my identity is not in being a CEO, right? That's just, it's a part of who I am, but it's not me. Like I could stop being CEO tomorrow and Marissa's going to be okay, right? Because my identity isn't wrapped up in that. But I recognize that there is a part of me that people see that title, and I have a responsibility to respond in a way that, whether it's given or not, has to command a certain level of respect, because CEOs who yell and scream and throw temper tantrums, people don't want to be around them. Really, again, it goes back to the human thing. We throw out the titles. My title is rented. It doesn't belong to me. But what does belong to me is my character. And when I think about who that decision would have affected, I wouldn't be okay with my character had I allowed that to move forward, right? And so again, these aren't easy spaces to choose to respond versus react in. And I thought really hard about, do I share that story? And I think it's important because it's not, it's a cookie cutter and easy things that we are challenged with managing. These are real business decisions that we have to choose. How are we going to show up in that moment? Because that is going to determine the future for a lot of people. And it also determines how that individual is going to continue to respond to me. And I think that's important.
I really appreciate what you shared, and especially this concept that we all are culture creators in our own way. And it's especially influential at the top of organizations where there is more power. But the awareness around how I act creates the culture, the way that we do things around here.
Absolutely. I'm a part of an organization today that's 114 years old, right? We have legacy pieces that are older than me. And so when I think about the Girl Scout Promise and Law, where we talk about respecting authority, where we talk about showing courage, confidence, and character, sometimes I have to remind people, like, are we operating in the Girl Scout Promise and Law right now? And I told my chief of staff, I said, you know what? I think I'm going to start citing our Girl Scout Promise and Law when people respond to things that aren't exactly kind, aren't exactly the way that we should be engaging with each other. Because then all it does is reground people in our mission. to make sure that young girls had a space to call their own at a time when they couldn't open bank accounts and they couldn't initiate their own divorce, but they had a voice, right? And we want people to use their voices, but we also want them to make sure that when you're using it, you're conscious of how and what is coming out of it.
So good. So good. Marisa, you have led through extraordinarily difficult seasons, whether it was leading at the YMCA during COVID or leading here in Minnesota during Metro Surge. As you think back on some of these more challenging times, what are you most proud of?
I think that I didn't lose me in the process. I have witnessed a lot of people go through change and not be transformed by it.
Mm,
And what I mean by that, because change is inevitable, transformation is optional, right? And so when you think about COVID, and that was a space where nobody knew what was going on, everybody was like, okay, we're washing paper bags. Like, what the heck is this? And everything was shutting down. And I remember my CEO at the time telling me, yep, we're going to shut down all of our branches. I said, wait a minute. I said, this branch over here that I am partly responsible for provides a food bank every Tuesday and Thursday. We provide social services. I said, no, we can't close. That's not an option for us. Well, no, we have to. What we can do is we can use that garage door that opens up the building. That was fancy. And we can have the food bank inside. Everybody can wear masks, gloves, whatever we need to do. But the community needs us. So no, we're not going to shut down that location, right? And we're going to use our Y on the Fly vans. And I'm going to go partner with some of these restaurants that are getting PPP funds and they're not open. And so I called all of the high-end restaurants I possibly could, Fogo de Chão in Pittsburgh, said, absolutely, we want to partner with you. And so for 6 to 8 weeks, 3 times a week, I would have somebody from my team, myself, and then we started actually partnering with community leaders. And we would do these ride around the community, delivering Fogo de Chão meals to families who were in need, right? And so we're having these conversations in the car about what does leadership look like during COVID, right? I'm like, I am going out of the house when most people are staying in the house because I know what humanity needs in this moment. And as I'm telling you this, it's like, yeah, well, that's why the affordable housing organization reached out to you, because they saw what you were willing to do in a moment of crisis. We don't shrink in those moments. We expand, we take up space, and we help other people.
Where do you think you learned that from, Marisa? Where does that come from?
My mom, she's a bit of a rock star. And when I think about the fact that I'm a first-generation college student, she has done so much with so little. But I watched her as I was in middle school, and she stepped into an executive director role for a program called A Better Chance. And that program brought kids from inner cities in New York and New Jersey and brought them to our community school district because they were extremely gifted children who weren't going to be stretched in their current communities. And these young people have gone on to do amazing things. And it is the perfect example of really making sure that you're being planted in the right environment for you to really grow to your highest potential. And so I saw my mom negotiating with people who were a part of this organization because it made them feel good, not necessarily because they were good for the organization. I watched her speak truth to power often. And like I told you, I mean, I was bossy. I'm the oldest daughter, oldest grandchild on both sides of my family. There's no such thing as shrinking in my book. Like, how could I? I mean, everybody doted on me for the first, I think I was by myself for, well, at least 4 months. So it was like intrinsic, like, yeah, I'm the show. I am the important thing. And I learned very early on that when you spoke up, you received a reaction, whether it was good or not. And I started to process as I got older, what's the reaction that I want, right? Because I didn't want that first grade teacher reaction of you're bossy and you talk too much. But I did want the reaction of my sixth grade counselor when I told her, we don't have a Black History program in this school. What the heck is wrong? No. So I'm going to organize with my friends and I need your support and I need you to galvanize the administrators so that we can make this happen. And that program that we started for one period on one day during the shortest month of the year turned into a 25-year tradition that school continued to do well after I left, right? Like, that is the fire that is in me that just, one, leans into, what does this say? Troublemaker, for sure. But also, there's power in watering your own garden and knowing that you're built for something really special. And you just need to have tunnel vision on what that thing is, while also making sure that what you're pouring into your cup is enough that it spills over on the plate and you can share that with other people.
So powerful. Marisa, I heard this spark of hope throughout our conversations, and I'm curious, what is giving you hope right now in this season?
It's the honest truth that seasons will always change. I had the great privilege of participating in the Obama Leaders Program over this past year. And Valerie Jarrett came to Minneapolis and we were able to spend some time together. And we talked a lot, not about work. And she asked this amazing question of every person she meets. She said, tell me something about you that I can't read on your resume, right? Because everybody wants to talk title and all this foolishness. She's like, tell me something I would never know about you if you didn't share it with me. And we talked a lot about joy, like how to get it, how to hold on to it. Because during Metro Surge, I mean, we had a bright spotlight right on this city. And everything we were doing, not doing, how we were supporting our neighbors, how we were supporting our employees, all of that was center stage for people to see. And I asked Valerie, I said, in all of the chaos that we experienced, you were in the White House for 8 years in some of the craziest situations that we don't even know about because you're not supposed to know, right? You did a good job. You kept some secrets. She said, Marisa, I will tell you that out of those 8 years, every Sunday, I had brunch with my girlfriends and I had dinner with my family every Sunday. And that was the thing that powered me through every week. She said, you have to find that thing. And in that moment, we had just, I think that was March, we had just gone through some of the hardest months. It felt like February and January were their own separate years. And it was like, when are we going to get out? Like, this is really long. And I had to make a decision. How am I going to spark joy in a season that doesn't feel like it exists? And when I got really still, it was, well, it's not going to just be for you. And so I created this community called Girlfriends Who Flourish for women who are professionals who no longer have an interest in separating their faith and their professional space. It's like, no, all of these things can exist together. You can talk about your faith. You can talk about your growth aspirations within your career. And we can have a space where we can have these conversations right here. And the response from women, and I launched it on LinkedIn, was insane. I said, oh, people want to have these conversations. This is awesome. And so for me, being able to spark joy centered in my core strength of belief, and I'm giving something to people that they otherwise wouldn't receive, like that was the creation of joy for me. So being able to give something to others and watch how their lives are changing, and then also watching how I am traversing through some interesting tests and trials in the process, it's like I am making sure, again, that cup is being filled, I'm being fortified, but I'm also making sure that the people that are around me are getting the access, they're getting the benefit, they're getting the extra joy that I have to give. because you can't keep it all to yourself. That's selfish. You got to pass some stuff along.
Yeah, I love that answer. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Last question for you, Marisa.
How? How are we here already? Okay, I'm ready.
And I hesitate to ask this because A, I think it's unfair. And B, I know the Girl Scouts have grown beyond so much more than cookie sales. And I also recognize the incredible entrepreneurial skills that are learned through the Girl Scouts. If
I'm
you could
ready.
only have one flavor of Girl Scout cookies for the rest of your life, what would it be?
It is going to be probably the unpopular opinion.
Now you really have me wondering.
I know. Because I think most people think it's like, oh, she's going to say Thin Mints, or she's going to say, it's a trefoil. I feel like my taste buds have changed since I've gotten older. Have you ever had dessert hummus before?
Yes, I have.
Vanilla batter dessert hummus or brownie batter with a trefoil is the best time.
I have never thought of that.
Or cookie dough. I mean, I'm big on, you got to get your vegetables in. But if I can get my vegetables in with a cookie, hey, it's a party.
I love that answer. Well, you're expanding my palate because now I need to go out and secure both of those items.
Yes, you do. And you know somebody, so I might be able to help you out in the off season.
Oh, Marisa, thank you so much for bringing your passion and your fire and your disruption to such incredible work that you're doing through the Girl Scouts, through these different endeavors that you're launching, and just through being your authentic self and creating space for others to be their authentic self. It's been such a joy and pleasure and privilege to talk with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I love having conversations like this. This doesn't even feel like work. This is great.
And thank you to our listeners. Join us next week for another episode of Leadership Matters.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Leadership Matters. If today's episode resonated with you, would you do me a favor and share it with someone you care about? To learn more about the work the Bailey Group is doing in the world, check us out at thebaileygroup.com or follow us over on LinkedIn. We love sharing useful articles, helpful resources, and valuable tools to help you expand your leadership capacity. Like and subscribe, and join us next time for more honest conversations.